observance in the School of Library and Information Studies. As some of you may know, others may not, this is the 40th anniversary of the graduation of a class from this school. First class graduated in 1988, and therefore it is very appropriate that we have with us as our speaker this morning a person who had a long and distinguished association with this school. Mrs. Sarah Krentzman Srygley was part of this school and associated with the development of library services in Florida for 40 years. She served during that time as a school media specialist in schools in Florida, as a consultant to the State Department of Education. She taught library science courses here at FSU prior to the establishment of this school. And she continued to be a part of this faculty after the school was established until her retirement in 1976. During her career, Mrs. Srygley played many roles in the development of library services. She's been president of the Florida Library Association. She played a major role in the development and in the adoption and approval by the people of Florida's Distinguished Minimum Foundation Program for public schools. She has served on numerous professional committees at the national, regional, and state level. It was principally through her efforts that school library services in Florida very early developed standards which other states have yet to meet. She also set high standards for her teaching and for her students, and consequently she is one of the most remembered of our faculty and one of those faculty members about whom alumni always inquire. In 1976, when she retired from the school, friends and family joined together to create the Krentzman Srygley Lecture series in honor of Mrs. Srygley and her husband, the late Dr. T.Q. Srygley. It is a pleasure to present her now to give that lecture for this year, Mrs. Sarah Srygley.
Thank you so much, Bill. One would think that the reason for creating that lectureship was to ensure that forevermore I'd have a chance to make a speech every now and then. But the Srygley Lectureship is really supposed to bring people from out of this place here to speak, and I hope we can do that from here on. Well, here it is, 1988, a time of celebration for this school, and for some of us, a time for remembering. 40 years have passed since the school was founded. Now, these have been good years, bad years, better years, and all of them brought us to this anniversary year. I'm reminded of a story about a farmer in Arkansas who had some prize razorback hogs, and they got to be very large, and so a visitor said to him, "These are the biggest hogs I ever saw. How old are they?" And he said, "Well, they're about 3 years old." And he said, 3 years? He said, "Well, that seems like kind of a long time to me." And the farmer said, "What's time to a hog?" So when I think about 40 years here, I think, what's time? The years passed by and they were all interesting and productive. Before I begin the remembering, I'd like to clarify what I'm going to talk about. I'm reminded of the story about a young man who enrolled in a speech class as a step towards self-improvement. Much to his surprise, in the first class, the teacher asked each student to choose a topic and to speak extemporaneously on this subject for 5 minutes. He quickly chose his topic, and he chose sex. And he held his audience enthralled for 5 minutes. When he got home that night, he told his wife about the experience of extemporaneous speaking. When she asked him what topic he chose, he really stammered a bit, and then he said, "Sailing." Later, his wife had a call from a friend who had been in the class. and who had reported on the wonderful speech that the husband had made. His wife said, "I don't know why he chose that subject. The first time he tried it, he became very nauseated. And the second time, it blew his hat right off his head." When Dr. Hart called me to invite me to speak today, I told her I would be glad to share some memories that I have of people and events related to the school's beginning, but that I would not attempt to relate or evaluate all the school's development through these 40 years. So I hope you'll forgive me if this is a very personal account. There are left other speeches to be made and papers to be written about many other significant aspects of the program and people who contributed to it. Dean Harold Goldstein has written a brief history of the school for the Encyclopedia of, Libraries and Information Science. In most cases, what he has written is an accurate account of dates and events in the development of the school. What he has not attempted to do is to tell very much about how and why these things happened as they did, and it is this behind-the-scenes testimony that I'm going to report today. And I think there are few living who can either confirm or deny this. As he wrote, library science courses were first offered in 1926 at the Florida State College for Women as an undergraduate program under the direction of the college librarian, Miss Louise Richardson. She taught one course, just one course in which she taught everything for a long, long time. And then eventually, Miss Ella Lane Matthews came to the faculty from Maryland, and she was, I can attest, a very great teacher. And nobody has ever paid much attention to her, but I think they might. She wrote a very interesting book called Over the Blue Wall about the Appalachian Mountains. And she taught me and Nettie Taylor, who became a prominent librarian, and some others I can mention in that program. Now, Miss Richardson administered the program with great force and style, and she successfully kept most students out of it. Now, in fairness to Miss Richardson, I want to say that she perceived this program as an elitist program, and she thought that it deserved the very best people and that there weren't many in the world, and she didn't need many. By the time I enrolled in 1935, in spite of her admonition that only the brightest and best could ever survive in the program, she told me that, and she implied that perhaps I should study something else more appropriate to my limitations. I remember that she stared at me that day and said, I had never seen her before, and she said, "Are you aware that you have to have a B average to get in this program?" And I said, "Yes, I read that in the catalog." And she said, "But you don't have a B average." And I said, "You better bet I do." And she brought out everything aggressive in me, and I think that's what has stayed with me through my whole career in librarianship. Well, there were only 5 students in the program when I joined it. I don't believe there were ever more than that until the School of Library Training and Service was established in 1946-47. Now, Dr. Goldstein says in his article that 25 students were admitted at one time to that undergraduate program. I think that is an error. I think they said that 25 would be admissible, but they weren't taking into account Miss Richardson's administration.